So if anyone wants to come forward and contribute something that you heard, something that you particularly felt, if there was a sensation in your room, in your conversation, when you went, oh yeah, that's amazing, we'd love to hear it. But we're just interested because we've probably had similar sorts of conversations, but you know what it's like when you go into breakouts, you can never quite tell what everyone else has had. So who wants to share from their group?
I'll jump in because Linda described our group as a lovely, warm, bubbly bath, which it was too much for me, and I think that's what I'm going to take away from this meeting. It's that kind of sense of just yeah, just being very heart-led. I've always felt like I've come home to ASP, so it's that kind of connection for something bigger and better.
I'm guessing that can't have been the only room where there was the sensation of that heart-led approach. Was that shared elsewhere? Damien's nodding. Stuart, thumbs up.
Absolutely. I think, and I mentioned it at the start of one of the conversation we were having, is the connection that you feel immediately with like-minded people, irrespective of what type of business or practice they happen to be in, and that is something I've experienced nowhere else. I mean, and I mentioned I was in startup communities, and still am in some of them when I started the business first. Yeah, there's a connection of sorts in those types of things. Even in sport, and I do coaching for kids sports. It's still not the same. I mean, there's a connection here that in ASP that transcends any difference. Actually, I think any difference.
That's lovely. Thanks, Damien.
I'll go.
Oh, yeah, Stuart, go. I was about to kind of volunteer you, actually, probably. So go for it.
Minds.
So what I was going to say is it leads on from what Damien was saying there. I don't go anywhere else where I have these conversations, these types of conversations, the monthly meetings and things of that nature. And what I shared in the room was that agency, association and awareness. For me, it starts with the self-awareness. And that was a theme that ran through our room, was about the more aligned we are with what it is we would love to create, and the more aware we are of how we sabotage that, because we're all human, we do that. The greater the difference that we can make. And also, there are you were right, Mike. There are so many fabulous things going on out there, and we just talked about a few examples of the things that are happening. Maybe not at scale, but they're happening in the background. There is, and I'm a bit wary of this word, but there's a lot of opportunity for hope out there. There really is. So that's what I wanted to. I think, is that a fair summary, Julia, and the others?
Yeah, I was definitely going to say pretty much it came down to kind of, yeah, that sort of awareness and really getting like certain things we can only get kind of from this community. Yeah, so I think, and kind of transformation and possibility was the real kind of themes I think that came out for us.
Lots of opportunity for hope. I love that. What a perfect framing. And I think that's the sense I have of the time that we're going into with ASP, is that it is a time of hopeful opportunity. Taking that time to go, what's special about this, and how do we take that? How do we take that forward? Gwyn, we've carried on in your absence. We guessed that you'd crashed, so we're just cracking on. We're still feeding back. Is anyone else? Please take us into your conversations. Let us know how it touched you. Go on, Candice.
Well, I was in a group with Damien, Mitali, and Naomi, and it was just really to have lovely to sort of have new faces and people represented from around the world, and opinions and learnings. But the thing that really stood out for me is everybody said, I'm new to this and I'm not an expert, and it's almost made me think, well, none of us are, and that's what's so great about this. We all come in with different skills and different knowledge, but for me, what's so special about ASP is there isn't this sort of superiority of I'm an expert sustainability professional, but we are practitioners, and that practice is really evident through certainly all the people I've had the pleasure of meeting in this community.
Tim, I just wondered whether I was struck. I enjoyed our little kind of conversation off. We didn't stay fully in the topic, but that little bit about these are dangerous times, and we were talking about the challenge of working together with so many, when people will have so many different ways of wanting to approach the same outcomes, same desires. And I did enjoy I can't remember exactly what you said. You stand up, you were talking about Taekwondo, and it's a martial art. And what was the statement you said you all stand up and say?
We stand up at the start of every competition and we pledge ourselves to peace, even though it's a martial art. Yeah. Which I really enjoyed. And then we kind of and for those not familiar with those kinds of things, that obviously they have a series of belts, and there's a belt just before you become a black belt, before you reach the kind of the height of the expert mastery, I suppose. There's a belt which is a red belt, and the red belt is, you tell me if I'm wrong, Tim, is red because you've got the skills, but not necessarily the mastery. You have to be careful because you mustn't misuse that. And so I think one of the challenges that we have, and it's really interesting, is how to stay in as fully together as we can across all of this extraordinary movement of hopeful change, when we are in the presence of very real, very present, very grave, multiple dangers. So anyway, I thought that was a very valuable piece of conversation we were having, really. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. Linda.
I was thinking when we were in the breakout, the importance of that we created the environment where we were listening and taking turns and giving each other attention in this hyper world of, it's very hard to give attention. But it also reminded me of the intention behind the attention. And if anybody here was a member of Extinction Rebellion or still is, you may remember their solemn oath, which was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen written about why they were there. Does anybody remember the solemn oath? We used to say it in the streets before we started on a march. Everything was very peaceful. It was disruptive, but it was very peaceful. And I can read it actually, because I was just thinking about how lovely that was. And I sometimes cry when I read it because it's quite moving actually. Where did I put that a second ago? Let's take this moment to consider why we are here. Let's remember our love for this beautiful planet that feeds, nourishes and sustains us. Let's remember our love for the whole of humanity in all corners of the world. Let's recollect our sincere desire to protect all this for ourselves, for all living beings and for generations to come. As we act today, may we find the courage to bring a sense of peace, love and appreciation to everyone we encounter, to every word we speak, and to every action we make. We are here for all of us.
Lovely. That's it reminds me of there's a greeting that begins with gratitude that's very similar that Robin Wall Kimmerer shares in Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a thanksgiving for all of the miracles of life. And we read it once in my book club, and when we started our discussion about it, we went round and we each took turns in reading out one of the phrases. It was very very powerful. I think we've lost Mike again. Not Mike. We've lost Gwyn again. So you stuck with me. Sorry. Is there anything else that anyone wants to share?
I'd just like to share in our group. One, it was so lovely to hear the different members of our group share what they're doing and the positive work they're doing. And also, you know, we were thinking about how do we build and learn from each other, and saying that this series of 5 workshops is a lovely opportunity to learn from all of us in the room and all our different skills. So yeah, so it's lovely to be here. Thank you all.
I can't remember whether I shared it at the beginning as well, but so the Future Stewards community, where the Three Horizons framework came from, we're gonna take this back to them. So once we've finished this and we've been through the process of looking at how Three Horizons shapes ASP and all the different practices that we bring to all the different bits of it, we're then going to share it back with the Future Stewards with this idea of sort of pools of knowledge and practice forming around how you understand each of those different horizons. So I think it's very much in that spirit, Elena, of giving back and it becoming a reciprocal relationship. And I think that's that's a common strand, isn't it, of these conversations, is that reciprocal nature of the relationship. Nick.
Hey everybody, thanks very much. It's really interesting and powerful afternoon and sort of sharing, so thanks very much. I think something that also often reflects on my mind is around the pressures that we're facing outside of these kind of lovely, warm communities, which are amazing, are very pointed and very effective, I think, in being quite strongly marketed and kind of positioned. And I think that one of the reflections in my mind is around how do we find the collective voice to challenge those kind of simple answers to very complex problems. And I think that's something that I've been reflecting on a lot. Is my background is a long time ago was in brand and marketing strategy and advertising and things. I just feel that sometimes we are so compassionate to the problems that we're facing. We are losing the cut through that we need, and that worries me. So that was just sort of a reflection that I have in this idea that how do we find our power that comes from love rather than being and not forming into that kind of, having debates that with sometimes crazy people, but equally how do we then start to find a way that feels like we're not becoming so passive that we get steamrolled over. I think that's why for me these sort of spaces are so amazing, but it's also then how do we ensure that we keep our sort of strength and choosing that way of being. So it's more a reflection really, and any thoughts would be very gratefully received.
Lovely, Nick, thank you. And for me, it feels like the opposite of what Mike was talking about with that red belt. It's almost like there's a danger that we don't put through, that we don't have impact because of our natural inclinations to be tolerant. And I think, this is the context in which we're existing. It's that love and rage thing, isn't it?
I just like to add something, and this was spoken about before in terms of putting a mirror on ourselves. And Mike, as you said, how Judy Marshall would say, and where do you think you land in this? So Chris Seeley for me was going on at me about, now, who are you, Lalit? Like, what are you? I mean, you're right. You talk a good game. You write about all these things. But where do you stand? I was refusing to go there for a while. And that discomfort that we continue to feel in the ethical dilemmas that we face on a day-to-day basis as a consumer, as an investor, and then as a citizen, as a human being, and these value systems are clashing with each other. So I think this is one of the things that for me, the mindfulness practice really is to about sit with these dilemmas, sit with the fears and the guilt, and there's no such thing called perfection, because everything that is going on right now is about I'm right, you're wrong, and there has to be some perfect way of doing this. It's about how do we hold these spaces of uncertainty and contradiction and paradox as we move through our lives. And I think if and I know ASP now is focusing a lot on uh, putting a mirror on self. How do we keep talking about staying with the paradoxes, not I come from a world of Buddhist background. So one of the first things that was taught to me was suffering comes from attachment. So if I'm attached to a certain ideology, I'm bound to suffer with that ideology because I'm going to have to defend it. So these are the kinds of conversations that if we can have without fear of judgment or with love and acceptance, I think we're done well.
Yeah, if I may jump in on that. Going back to Nick's statement that there's reason to be hopeful. They're all, as many of you know, I've sort of given up on hope because I've got evidence. So I don't need to believe in something without evidence, and you guys the evidence. But every week I'm having conversations with people that are outside ASP, and it makes me realise how many people are coming to our work from different directions. I think there are so many people. We just had a huge shift in our retail shopping centre here, where the property owners that own it have just decided that the only way to reach profit now is through social value. No one forced them; they just realised that. And again, it's that same age group. So I think there's massive forces there shifting. I think many people now are realising, as Mike was saying earlier, we're up against a very clear and distinct threat. And it's not just us that's seeing that. It's people who haven't thought about sustainability for ages, whether it's going to be enough, whether it's going to happen quick enough, but that's where we need to be. We need to be having conversations with, as Damien says, the persuadables, the people that really do want a different outcome, but don't know how to get there and don't know where it's being discussed or where it's being designed or where it's being permitted. And I think we are one of thousands of groups now across the world that are responding or are the response to that. And, the Shambhala warriors' key weapons were insight and compassion. And that's what Nick talks about all the time. They're very powerful weapons because they resonate with people who don't want to play the fear game, who want an antidote to that without being drawn into literally a physical or violent fight. They want a different way of approaching the threat they're seeing. And I think that's emerging. I don't know whether it's quick enough or fast enough, but we're part of that. We've emerged into that space, and it's a crowded space, very crowded. So that's my the evidence that I'm working on that keeps me coming to the work every day.
I'm so looking forward to deepening this conversation over the next few months. And the first session is on the afternoon of Monday, the 6th of October. So we'll send around details, but we're going to get into Horizon 1 now. But thank you for inviting me into the whole this space. It's very special. I appreciate it.
Yes, well, yes, I'm sure everybody will agree. We're all incredibly appreciative of Tim coming along and sort of guiding us through this process. So it's absolutely wonderful to feel his expertise and holding of this for us all, and very exciting times ahead. And yeah, thank you so much, Mike, for coming along and giving your amazing perspective of I'm a relatively new member, so it was great to hear the whole history there. And I know there's been a lot of work going on in the background. Damien and Simon and Gwyn, help me out, some other names here, but that have been really part of this, making this thing happen. Who am I missing, Gwyn?
Daniil
Yeah.
yes, beside us, and quite a few others. Yeah, but they're on.
Yeah, so I'm sure you'll.
Julie and Michelle as well, of course.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so thank you all for this, and it is very exciting, and I'm sure you can all feel that the 20-year-old is ready to go out in the world and do something different. And you know, it's been an amazing journey so far, but there's amazing things to come. And I love what Nick was saying. I think there's a collective voice here that the 20-year-old wants to be represented by that 20-year-old, going out and having ASP have agency. This is what we see possible, with all of that heart and love and bubbly bath-ness as well. So it's this wonderful kind of question that we're inside of right now. So please do be part of this process. Come to the upcoming workshops. You know, we really value your input. So with that, just to say thank you for all being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon.